Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the first in what will hopefully be a new series if you guys like it here on my channel, and I'm calling it Makeup and Movies. So if you are new here, you won't know, but recently I started a new hobby for myself. I just turned 40 and I decided I wanted to start taking myself on dates, spending more time in my own company and just having a bit more me time. And one of the ways I've been loving to do that is by going to the cinema solo cinema trips, like once a week. I'm just absolutely loving it. And for my 40th birthday, my husband actually gifted me a limitless Odeon membership, so that means I can go to the cinema for free as many times as I like, and I am taking advantage of it. I'm getting his money's worth. So what I thought I would start do is combining two of these new passions here on my channel in a get ready with me style video where I'm just doing my makeup for the day while I review the films that I saw this month. So if you want to know my thoughts on all of the films that I saw in the month of February and check out what makeup I'm using today, then keep watching. So I won't be talking you through my makeup because obviously that's too much multitasking for one day, frankly, for me anyway. That's beyond my capabilities. But everything that I use today will be listed down below in the description box. So how I kind of see this series going is that I will give each film that I saw in the month, so in the month of February, as we are kicking off. I feel slightly irked that I missed January. This feels very like out of sync for me to be starting off with a new series in February. Like, what is she doing? I've had a few suggestions previously to start doing, like, including film reviews in like my monthly roundups, and I thought, let's see how many people are actually interested in films and in my thoughts and reviews and just talking about these films. And I really hope to encourage more of you guys to go by yourself because it's one of my all-time favorite things to do now. I absolutely love it. I was talking about it recently and just how freeing it is, but also just how nice and relaxing I find it. I find it so therapeutic and just good for the soul. So I highly encourage you, if you've ever been thinking about going to the cinema solo, to go for it. You won't look weird. As I said before, every time I go to the cinema, almost everyone in there is on their own and nobody is looking around thinking we're all such a bunch of weirdos. We're just enjoying ourselves. And you know, I don't have childcare, so my husband and I can't go to the cinema together very often. You know, my friends have very busy lives and children as well, so I was missing out on a lot of films and seeing a lot of films at the cinema, and some films just need to be seen at the cinema, don't they, to appreciate the scale, the theatre of it all, the effects, everything like that. You need to see certain films in the cinema, and I was missing out on the films that I wanted to go and see because I didn't have anyone to go with. But not anymore, because I'm going with myself and I'm great company, I'll say. You know, I can choose whatever snacks I like, I can see whatever film at whatever time and day suits me, and I can sit wherever I like as well. It's all wins everywhere. So I'm going to give each film a rating and I'm going to give you my thoughts, how I found it, how much I liked it, all of that stuff, but I'm going to do my best not to give any spoilers, okay? So I won't be doing a full-on breakdown of every one of these films because some of you might not have seen them and you might want to see them. So I'm not going to do any spoilers, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, I'm not going to give anything away that would take away from the experience of the film. I'm just going to be giving you my thoughts and a bit of a description on what the film is about, so you can decide if you might want to see it yourself. And if you have seen it, I would love you to share your thoughts as well in the comment section, because I'm sure we probably all have very different thoughts on films. So I saw 4 films in the month of February. One of those was a children's film, Migration, which is a U film that I went to see with my husband and my children. I thought I would include my thoughts on that because a lot of us have children, want to take our children to see films, and we want to know how painful is it going to be, you know? What state of mind do I need to be in? What mood do I need to be in? How painful is it going to be? I'm here to share my thoughts on that one with you. And the other 3 that I saw on my own were One Life, Argylle and Wicked Little Letters. So let's kick off with Migration. So this was the film that I went to see with my children, and let me tell you, I absolutely loved it. You know, kids films or family films, UPG films that you go to see because your children want to see them, they have a scale, okay? Not all of them are great. I have seen some really seriously painful ones, and also when my children were really young, so we'd go to see, you know, real little ones films just to start off their sort of cinema experience, and they tend to be quite short, but some of them can feel extremely long. And when you're tired with like young children, it's really just an opportunity for a nap sometimes. But then you've got films like, I love the Trolls films. Those are really great. Some of them are actually have a lot of jokes for the parents, and this is one of those, okay? This was so funny. We had seen a few trailers for this film before we actually went to see it, and my kids were absolutely desperate to see it just based off of those trailers, and it did not disappoint. It was not one of those films where all of the funny bits are in the trailer. My children are 8 and 9, and I asked them to rate this one for you, and they both gave it a 10. I always ask them, what do you give this film out of a 10 when we leave the cinema, and they both gave it a 10. And I said this to my husband at the time, I have never seen my son, who's my youngest, he's just turned 8, I have never seen him laugh so much in a cinema. You know, children don't necessarily laugh like adults do at TV and films. They very much sort of laugh internally a lot of the time. It takes a lot for them to really belly laugh out loud, I've found, at like cinema. I mean, they do it all the time, but at television and cinema, they don't sort of tend, when they're young, laugh out loud as much. They were literally howling. There was one specific bit, my son was laughing at it for about 10 minutes. He was still laughing, howling, like 10 minutes later at this one joke. It was very funny, very easy to watch, also very child friendly. There was nothing like super sad and depressing and upsetting for children that happened, which I find is so unnecessarily included in almost every children's film, is like a parental death, some kind of scarring event. This was a really nice, wholesome film about a family of ducks, and the dad is like too scared to leave their pond, so they've never migrated before. And then one day some foreign ducks come to their pond who are migrating, and the rest of the family basically persuade the dad to go on their first ever migration, and it follows the sort of story of their migration. It's like a big adventure, super funny. I also wanted to just slightly cover the scariness of these films because my son is a little sensitive. I mean, he's strange because we went to see like the newest Jurassic Park at the cinema, which is terrifying at the best of times. Like, people are being chased by giant dinosaurs. There's lots of jumping out and jump scares in Jurassic Park films, and he was absolutely fine with that. But then he'll get randomly terrified watching like The Lion King, you know, so he is more sensitive. He does get scared at films when you really don't think that there is anything scary. You just can't predict what that boy will find scary, honestly. But there really wasn't anything very scary for him at all. The scariest thing was like this chef who's like trying to track down these ducks because he wants to make duck à l'orange with them. So he is really the only scary bit in the film, but like I said, my son didn't find him that scary, and he wasn't in a lot of it. So yeah, I think even the more sensitive children probably won't find it that scary. Super funny, super easy to watch, lots of jokes for the parents. I'm going to give that an absolute solid 9 out of 10 for a family film. So a very extreme and sudden change of pace, okay? Brace yourselves, because the next film I went to see is One Life, and this is a very different kettle of fish. This was the first film that I've been to see by myself that was a real like sobber. And I say it all the time, I am such a crier these days. I was never a crier before I had children, okay? The only film that ever made me cry in a cinema was Marley and Me, and I don't know why I went to see it at the cinema, but I was bawling. Like, I had a little tear during Wonka, you know, the ending, super sad, had a little tear. I had several tears, I won't lie to you, several times I cried during Wonka. Normally in the cinema, or watching films in general, you know, not real life scenarios, I'll get a little tear, you know, maybe it will make its way down my cheek. That's kind of the maximum damage that we're doing. But since I had children, I have done some real sobbing in my diet. But when I went to see Marley and Me, it was poor. It was, you know, the sort of crying where you can't help but make a noise in the cinema, like actual sobs. Mortifying. Came out an absolute wreck. But the lucky thing is, everybody in the cinema was the exact same way. Okay. You've got to be some special kind of psychopath not to bawl during Marley and Me, especially the first time you see it and you are not ready. So this was the first film I've ever been to see at the cinema on my own where I thought and I suspected that I might cry, but I braved it and I went. I will say it didn't start off well because there was a trailer before the film even started for Les Mis, which is not being remade, I don't think, but it's being remastered. So there was a trailer for Les Mis and that gets me going every time. So I literally had a little tear during the trailers and I thought, wow, there's only one way this is going and it's straight down the hill. So One Life is a biographical drama based on the true story of the British humanitarian Sir Nicholas Winton. So Sir Nicholas Winton, this is a true story and this film tells his life story. Just before the beginning of World War II, he helped hundreds of Jewish children escape from Czechoslovakia, like at the beginning of the German invasion into Czechoslovakia. So World War II was kicking off. There was a lot of displacement of people. People had been fleeing into Czechoslovakia and he went over there initially to the camps to sort of help out and, you know, bring over supplies and do whatever he could to help there. But he saw a lot of children, he saw a lot of families, there was a lot of talk about the danger that was coming, and he basically went on a mission to help and get as many children as possible out of Czechoslovakia and into the UK before Hitler invaded. So he set up hundreds and hundreds of foster families who would agree to take children from these camps, Jewish children, and give them a home for as long as they needed a safe place to live. And he literally saved hundreds and hundreds of Jewish children's lives during that time. He kept a diary. So apparently this is a book as well, by the way, because I was telling my mum about this film and she immediately went out to get the book because she's not really much of a film person, but she wanted to read about this story. So he kept like an encyclopedia of all of these children. He had a photo of every single child that he was trying to find a foster family for, because he wanted, that's how he was almost like a shopping book. So these families who would say, yes, I will take a child, you know, I'll foster a child and keep them safe and feed them, he would show them this catalogue of children with their age, their name, their photo, and they would choose which children they would accept and would take and how many children and from the same family, because some of these families were, you know, large and they wanted to keep the children together. So he had the details and this huge detailed record of every child that he helped escape and find a safe home in Britain before the war came, before these children were in really serious danger. It was obviously, I'm getting emotional talking about it now. It was so emotional. I knew that it would be. I knew that it would be a tough watch, and it's definitely not the sort of film that is my type of film. Anything historical, I'm usually out. But the great thing about having this cinema, this free pass to the cinema, is it really encourages you, I found, to see films that are not what you would usually go and see. You know, before I was going on my own and before I had this free pass so I could go as much as I wanted, I would, you know, my type of film are like horror films, scary, thriller, crime type films. That's kind of my typical cup of tea, and I would always go with my husband, and that's what we like to see. That's our favourite type of film, and we would maybe get to go and see an actual adult grown-up film maybe like once every 3 months if we could find one during the day that we could see in school time. That's how often we would get to go. But now I'm trying to go more often just because I love the experience of going to the cinema. Obviously there aren't always my first choice type of film to see, so sometimes, quite often, I'm seeing something that I never would have watched, you know, if it hadn't have been for these solo cinema trips and this free pass to the cinema. It's really encouraging me to get out of my little box of thriller horror films and actually see lots of different types of films, lots of different genres. And this is one where I'm so glad I went to see it, because on paper it's not my type of film and I definitely would have missed out, because this is the most beautiful, painful, amazing story that I have never heard. This story, I had never heard of Sir Nicholas, and it is absolutely beautiful. There are some of the real people involved in the story in the film. Sir Anthony Hopkins actually played Sir Nicholas and did a phenomenal job. Helena Bonham Carter was also in the film, and I love her as well. Different role really for her, I find, but it was just so moving, absolutely devastatingly heartbreaking. Obviously, I cried buckets the entire way through. I might cry now just thinking about it. I'm absolutely giving this a 10 out of 10. I don't know how it could have been better with this type of film. It was just beautifully done. It's the sort of film that you will remember and think about for years, and I think it's one that's really important to watch, and you know, it really adds to your knowledge of what these things were like and what was going on, and areas of this, the whole situation that I had no idea, you know, were happening. I'd never heard of Sir Nicholas and his story, and it's such a huge story, more people should know about it. And although it was really, really a hard watch, it was a beautiful watch at the same time, and yeah, I really, really loved it, even though it was one that, like I said, is just not really my typical type of film that I ever see. I was so glad I went to see it. Highly recommend. So the next film that I saw this month was Argylle. This is another one that definitely is not my usual cup of tea. I had seen trailers for it, wasn't really one that really appealed to me. I'm not really a superhero type of girl, and I think that's what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be a superhero film based off of the trailers. It's not really. It's more of a sort of comedy spy type of film. It's like James Bond, but not taken seriously. So this stars Bryce Dallas Howard, who I'm a big fan of, anything with her in, and it's going up 2 marks in my book. It also had a cameo by Dua Lipa, and then it has Henry Cavill and Sam Rockwell. Those are kind of the main characters. So Bryce plays an author who writes books about a spy called Argylle, right? So all of her books are like these action adventures about her main character, Argylle, who is a spy, literally like a James Bond type spy, right? And one day she is on a train and she gets kidnapped by a man who tells her, he's like a goody, like, I don't know, the FBI, and he is there to save her and keep her safe, because it turns out that these books that she's writing about Argylle, everything that happens in them is actually coming true. So not only the goodies, the FBI or whoever this man works for, I can't remember, but also the bad guys want to get hold of Bryce's character, this author, because they either think she knows something. How is she predicting all of this stuff? She must be in on it. She must be, you know, working for someone involved in all of this business, or she's psychic, in which case they want to get hold of her so they can get her to predict like what they should do or what they should do next, and they're actually after something, and they want her to like tell them where it is, write her next book so they can find out where this item is, all of that stuff. You see the appeal in having someone who's writing your future in your possession, right? So that's kind of the premise of the film. I wasn't a big fan of this one, okay, I'll say that. I'm going to give it, I feel like the number that's coming into my head is like a 4 or a 5, but that seems so brutal. but I think I'm gonna have to be Simon Cowlish on this one. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I wasn't really planning to do half marks, but here we are. It started off, I feel like it started off well, okay? I was involved, I love Bryce. I feel like this could have been a lower mark if not for Bryce Dallas Howard, because she sells everything, doesn't she? And actually Sam Rockwell as well. I feel like a couple of the actors in this film really saved the day with it, because it could have been even worse. I just found it, I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, I'm assuming this was supposed to be like joking, right? Because the whole thing was extremely like silly, like from the sort of special effects and like the fight scenes that they were doing were just utterly unhinged. I'm assuming they were supposed to be, but it just wasn't, it wasn't that funny. Do you know what I mean? I get that it wasn't supposed to be James Bond, it was all supposed to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it wasn't that funny. It just wasn't, for me at least. It was okay, I didn't walk out, it was watchable, and you know, it passed a couple of hours in the day for me. Would I recommend it? No. It just all felt a little bit silly, it felt a little bit painful, and I like silliness as much as the next girl. Like, I was a big fan of Austin Powers, okay? I can laugh at silliness. This was just, I guess, it was like it was almost, it wasn't silly enough maybe. It felt like it was supposed to be taken seriously, because it wasn't silly enough to be like funny silly. Is this making sense? I don't know. It just felt bad. And like I said, I don't think it was supposed to be taken seriously, but it just wasn't over the top enough. It was kind of just like a little bit worse than serious. I don't know how to explain it. It just didn't quite work what they were going for, I think. It was like I said, I sat in my seat, I didn't walk out. I can't say I enjoyed it. I can't say I found it funny, really, in very many places. I didn't find the storyline particularly gripping either. This for me is definitely, if you've got nothing better to do, then fine, you might like it more than I did, but I wouldn't like run out of your way to see this at the cinema. You can absolutely wait for this to come to Netflix and watch it for free, and I think you will have no regrets. Okay, and the final film that I'm going to share my thoughts on today is Wicked Little Letters. Let me tell you, this film, I saw a trailer for this film and I was just like, this isn't going to be funny. It's not going to be funny. It just didn't appeal to me at all. This stars Jessie Buckley and Olivia Colman. I do like Olivia Colman, okay? I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of her, but I do like her. Obviously, I feel like this feels like a very different role for her. I think the issue with the trailer maybe is that obviously there's only so much they can show because of the language. If you are offended by bad language, do not go and see this film, okay? It is obviously full, ram-packed of like some of the funniest but also sweariest words I've ever heard in my life. I did not think I would find this funny. I kind of thought, I don't know if I thought that the humour would be like too mature for me. I don't know. And I also don't typically find swearing that funny. Like, I don't find it that funny. And I really thought based off of the trailer that this is just going to be like a bit of an eye roll, like people trying to be edgy and swearing, and it's also supposed to be so funny. This is like the most I've laughed in I can't remember how long. I was crying laughing, I was howling. It was so funny. And a lot of the let me tell you about what the film is about, so this makes sense first. So the film is set in the 20s, okay, in a really small English town, very conservative population, highly religious population, right? And it centres around the main character, Edith, who is a very, very well-respected, highly thought of member of the religious community, very conservative, very religious family, very well-to-do, prim and proper, all of the above. She basically starts receiving hate letters, okay, just calling her every name under the sun, and these letters are absolutely hilarious. I was howling. Very, very funny. And hearing Olivia Colman read them out, even funnier. And also like the policeman reading them out, even funnier. So because of the sort of holier than thou like mood or vibe of this community, they immediately suspect her next door neighbour, who used to be her friend. So their next door neighbour is from Ireland, moved over after the war when she lost her husband in the war, and has a foul Irish mouth. She's an absolute queen. And she is very sort of frowned upon in this community because, you know, she has different men over all the time. She was widowed in the war, has like different boyfriends coming over. She's in the pub, she gets drunk, she's very, very sweary, and is just generally like horrifying the residents of this small little village, who are gasping and clutching their pearls at her behaviour. So initially these two women became like an odd sort of couple of friends, but then one day they have a bit of a falling out, and the next day social services are called on the Irish woman, and she thinks Edith did it, and they have this huge falling out, and then shortly after that the letters start. So it is a kind of a fair suspicion, you might think. But as Rose, who is the Irish migrant, as she sort of states, she would happily and does say all this stuff to, and worse, to Edith's face. So her defense is kind of like, you know, why would I send anonymous letters? I'll happily tell her what I think of her in the street, and she has done. But the police, who are very, very set in their ways, old-fashioned, misogynistic bunch of males, mostly apart from one absolute queen of a female officer, played by Anjana Vasan, who, by the way, should have been, in my opinion, the main character. I have not heard anything about her. I haven't seen her being interviewed with regards to the film. She's the main character, if you ask me. She was absolutely amazing, obsessed with her. So she is the sole female police officer, and she actually believes Rose, and they start to try and like figure out who is really sending these letters before Rose goes to jail and gets her child, her young daughter, who is played by the little girl out of Matilda, by the way, absolutely love her. So before she goes to prison and loses her daughter, they sort of set out to try and work out who is really sending these letters. It is actually, turns out to be a little bit of a dark story, and actually a really heartbreakingly sad sort of undercurrent to this film, which I didn't expect. I just thought it's going to be really silly and like not really that funny film about swearing and letters, and who really cares about any of it. But it was basically the only film on at the time that worked for me on the day that I could go. So I just thought, oh, you know, I can always walk out if it's that bad. I loved it. I'm giving this a solid 8 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it. Way, way more than I thought I was going to whatsoever. I just thought, you know, this is something to do on a rainy day. Nothing else was really on to see, and so this will do. And I loved it. It was so much funnier than I thought it would be, so much more entertaining, real lovely like British humour, great cast, really loved the whole cast, and it's just got a lot more to it than you think based on the description of this film. And also I feel like the trailer, I don't know if it was difficult because there wasn't a lot they could keep in to really show, you know, what the film was really about, because it was a lot more clever and a lot more to it. And like I said, it was kind of sad in places. I definitely shed a little tear. This is how ridiculous I am, but I cried at Wicked Little Letters, okay? But there's something really heartbreakingly sad about the undercurrent of the story. You'll find out, you'll know what I mean if you've seen it, but like I said, no spoilers. But this was really way, way more enjoyable for me than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, 8 out of 10 for a film that I didn't even want to see and is really not my typical cup of tea. That was for sure like my surprise of the month, that film. I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I came home raving to my husband about it. If, you know, you want a good laugh film with a bit of soul and actual character to it as well, I would highly recommend that one. So those were all of the films that I saw in the month of February. I've got some like really films that I'm excited about to see in March. I feel like March is going to be a big month for me. What is this hair? Where's it coming from? I think if I had to pick a favourite, I would definitely pick Wicked Little Letters, just because it was so unexpected of a hit. Like I I really didn't think it would be something that I would really enjoy, and then I loved it so much that it's really nice when you're pleasantly surprised. And then my least favourite 100% was Argylle. It was just not for me. Next on my list for next month is definitely, I'm going to try and make myself go and see Dune Part 2. I forced myself to see the first part because it's currently on Netflix, and I thought, let's watch the first one. If I really enjoy it, I'll go and see the second one. It's like 3 hours long. It might even be longer than that, 3.5 hours long. I just really need to be in like a certain state of mind to go to the cinema on my own for like nearly 4 hours. I'll need to go to the bathroom for a start, and so I'm going to miss something. So I'm really trying to psych myself up for it. I didn't love the first one. I do expect the second one to be better, but I don't know. I'm contemplating it. What do you guys think? Have you seen the second one? Is it better than the first? I felt like the first one was very strange. Not a lot really happened, and it felt like a year of my life long. Another one on my list is the Bob Marley One Love film. I'm also kind of contemplating going to see Imaginary, but I haven't gone to see a scary film at the cinema on my own yet. So that would be my first scary film solo at the cinema. So again, I'm not 100% sure about that one. I know that the prequel to A Quiet Place is coming out any day. It's not kind of listed currently at my cinema, but I'm definitely going to go and see that. And I wouldn't mind going to see that by myself because I feel like that one doesn't seem like as scary, or for the type of stuff that scares me. I feel like I could do that one by myself. So yeah, those are kind of the few that are on my radar to see next. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts and my ratings on all of the films that I saw in the month of February. Please let me know what you think of this video format. I really love talking about films and chatting about these new films that I'm seeing and just my new hobby with you guys. So I really like this kind of mashup video. Let me know what you think of it, if you enjoy it, if you want to see more each month. Let me know in the comment section down below. But I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.